Oh, that
Holy
was
fuck, that was nice.
okay. We are live. No cold open this time.
Nah, why not? Let's just get into it, eh?
Yeah. All right. Well, you are listening to the Micro Machines podcast, and this week we will be discussing varnishes. It's going to be a quiet little ship tonight because it's just myself and Callum. Callum, what's going on with you?
Not much. Although I had to run out today to a store to buy a new tripod and stuff for holding my phone for filming and stuff.
Ooh.
Because the one that I had, it's got the tension sort of way to hold a phone on.
We've got the little clamp.
Yeah. I was trying to set it up so I could record my first video where I'm just talking at the camera, a bit like your one. It literally blew up on me. Like, just, I don't know why. I put it in, and then I was trying to move the phone so it wouldn't pop out or anything, and then the whole thing just went poof, and fucking scattered into 3 pieces all over the place. So the legs are fine, but the part that holds the phone down is somewhere in this room. Those springs have got one hell of a bit of power in them, so I had to run out and buy a new one to set up. So yeah, only cost me $10, so whatever.
Well, that's not too
fine.
bad.
Nah, I mean, it's just Kmart cheap stuff. I mean, I don't buy expensive stuff for this kind of stuff.
Very nice. Well, I'd say just the two of us. Let's get on.
Yeah, why not?
So, all right. So I thought we would do this episode basically as kind of a break from our normal routine of talking about some kind of a vehicle and then doing all the other stuff. This time we're going to be talking about something very modeling related, and that is varnishing. So, Callum, how would you, in your own words, define what a varnish is to you?
My definition would be a finishing product to give a end result of whether a finish is to be a gloss, varnish, matte, sort of, sealant, protection, all around, sort of like a saran wrap for a sandwich.
Saran wrap for a saran. That I've never thought of it that way. But okay, that's a good way of looking at
it. Well, it protects what's underneath it.
Yeah, for me, it's always been about the protection aspect of it. I mean, even as a car modeler, who's obsessed with shiny finishes, for me, the varnish was always about just protecting that underlying paint job.
Oh yeah,
well,
I use I use enamel paint. That's my go-to. But you know how weak enamel paint is when you put it down, especially
you're still using enamel. Why do you use enamel?
I find it easier to work with, especially with long periods. Just using thinner just to regenerate, revitalize it, and mistakes.
Yeah.
But
it also smells good.
Oh yeah, especially when you close the door on yourself.
Yeah.
But when you use it, the level of paranoia skyrockets to the point I'm like trying to move the model around without damaging any of it. And I will be 100% stressed until I can get a satin varnish down on it and a couple coats, just so I can actually hold it and work on it in other ways. That's the very first use of varnish for me, is just making sure that I don't damage the paint. Because when you have a nice airbrush surface and then you get a scratch or a chip taken out, and you got to try and then it's like you no matter what you do, that little bit will always be slightly off to the rest of their coat unless you redo the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I thought that we would kind of just, for people say who are listening to this podcast and are still just getting into the hobby. So varnish is basically, what would you call it? A clear paint or some kind of clear medium?
I'd say it's a clear medium.
Yeah, it's more of like a clear resin. Usually, from a hobbyist standpoint, there are 3 main types of varnishes. You've got varnishes that are acrylic, like Tamiya paint, varnishes that are enamel, like you use, Calm, like Tester's Dull Coat, and then you get lacquer, which is a lot more toxic, but also a lot tougher. So, for instance, AK Ultra Gloss, that's a lacquer. and then you get usually three different. You can almost call it finishes. You've got
Yeah.
flat, semi gloss, and then gloss, which is just shiny.
I mean, like semi-gloss is satin, isn't it?
Satin, yeah,
And
satin,
then
semi gloss,
flat is just a flat matte.
yeah, and then
But
clear is gloss.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
different
yeah, but
terms, all the same
same
thing.
thing. Yeah, but basically with varnishing, when you apply it, whether that's with a brush, a rattle can, or an airbrush, what you're doing is you're basically just sealing in the base colors that you've laid down previously, and you might change the sheen of them, but you won't actually change the colors themselves. So it's a great way to make sure that your model stays protected.
It's look at it. It's the same way as if you're just working on a program, like say a Word document on your computer, and it's literally just hitting Control S. It's just saving your work. You know.
That's a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it does. But that's what it does. But there are other properties we'll talk about. There's reasons why you might want to use one versus the other for certain things. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's a good segue, I'd say, into our next slide, which is why do we varnish? And the way I've approached varnishing is always basically, from a purely practical standpoint, I varnish because I want to have a nice smooth surface to try and avoid getting decal silvering when I'm laying down decals. And I'm also to prevent fingerprints from going into my paints because I often will end up doing my base painting with acrylic and then putting oil paints on top. And of course, oil paints are notoriously they take a notoriously long time to dry, so you can easily get a fingerprint in them if you're not careful. But when you put a varnish on top, it seals them in.
yeah, yeah. Jesus Christ! We just had Garrison join, and that just like blasted through my earphones. That was so loud, I fucking jumped. Is he going to be joining us? Hang on, or not? Anyway, um, yeah. So have you? So when you use oil paint, do you put when it's still drying? Do you put a varnish down on it, or do you wait until it's like fully dried?
Nah, see, if I wait until it's fully dried, I'll be waiting days. So I usually put down a varnish on top of it because I find it somehow accelerates the drying process so that within 24 hours it'll be good to touch rather than 48 or 72. That's just what I
Really?
do. Yeah. And
Oh,
I don't usually
'cause-
use a lacquer or anything like that. I just use an acrylic varnish like Vallejo.
okay, because I've tried that a few times. The very first time I tried it, it was using the matte varnish that my dad made in a lab, so it's
Oh yeah,
unbranded. The very first time I did it, somehow it worked perfectly. So I thought, hey, I'll do it again. Every other time since, when I put down a matte varnish, it dries and then the whole thing cracks. A bit like when dirt super dries out
you
and
know
then it
what that might be?
forms all that.
Because I've had that happen.
Yeah.
I've had that happen with lacquer paint. You have too much pigment and not enough medium.
Okay.
Have you tried adding like more thinner to it?
Uh, I'll need to give it a try next time. But I will say though, if you're doing something like say, because I with oil paint, most of my oil paint is for wood grains and stuff like that.
Mm.
If you want to get a decent old weathered style, when a piece of wood's been varnished for a long time and it gets dull, and then the varnish starts peeling off, and you get like
Yep.
the sort of it actually gives that effect really well, which I have got on. I think at least one model I've got it actually showing doing that. There's a sort of worn varnish chipping away, so let's call it a happy accident that I found another way to. I found a way to do chipping on wood that of a clear varnish chip.
I'm gonna have to try that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be something to experiment with. But yeah, I mean, I've had very bad, like especially starting out when you first start using varnish. Of course, you treat it like paint, don't you? You treat it, especially if you're new to painting and you don't know the whole two thin coats. Just taking
Yeah.
it easy. You just want to get paint down. And of course, when I first started, I was so impatient. I just wanted to build stuff as quickly as possible because it was just like this amazing thing. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm patient now, but I'm more patient than what I was. And there's at least two of my old models that have the worst varnish. When it starts turning white in corners where it builds up?
Oh yeah, when it pools up and yeah, is that matte varnish you're using? Because I find that
Yes,
happens with me. Yeah,
matte varnish is the worst for it.
yeah.
So my
Because
my
matte varnish has
KV1
to be
did
the
that.
most opaque.
Yeah, that happened with my KV1. I put a matte varnish down, and yeah, it started, and I just did it too heavily and it pulled, and then everything started turning white around everything. So I had to go back and do a number of like heavy washes and pin washing and stuff around it just to try and bring it back down to
Yeah,
like not that. But then at the same time, learned my lesson with clear gloss. That gloss for it to work has to go down smoothly, and you know you. But if you put on too much,
it starts to
or
drip.
well, it starts to do that, but then it also discolors itself, I think.
What
Um,
gloss are you using? Are you
Again,
using testers?
new. This clear gloss was it was a it was an experimental sample from my dad's work.
It discolored, eh?
Yeah, it's actually gone because I've tried to redo photos. It's my B26 Marauder,
Okay.
the
Has it yellowed?
horrific Airfix one. Note to self, note to everyone actually, that Airfix B26B Marauder, stay the fuck away from it. It is that one almost got me back out of modeling, we'll say. And that was only like the third or fourth model I built. Like the hull,
That's rough. That's why
the
I don't tell people who
fuselage.
are getting into it to build Airfix.
Yeah, well, new Airfix, good. Vintage Airfix is actually still really good. Like their vintage classics, a lot of them are really good kits, even now.
Yeah, they're all
Um,
right.
but there's a sort of 2010 period with Airfix where their kits were dog shit, and this was one of them. And the fuselage halves had like they were so warped that they didn't even line up. Like they did, like the the edges didn't even line up with each other. They didn't touch.
I
But
remember that. I remember building kits like that back in
yeah,
the 2010s. Yeah.
yeah, and oh, the canopy for it, and all the clear parts, the lines to for the the frame for
Yep.
the canopies and all that, barely there. Like you
Yeah.
they're flat. So it was a dog shit kit that I was working on anyway, and then I put this um, testing pot of this clear varnish on, and now I've looked at it recently. I was redoing photos, and the varnish did drip, it did run, but it also turned a sort of yellowish hue.
Yeah. Certain
It's
varnishes, I've heard people say that some of the older stuff can yellow on you over time.
mm,
So maybe you're getting an accelerated reaction of that.
I think so. It's I wanted to post brand new photos, doing it, but it's just so noticeable. I don't want to because it's a bit embarrassing, but at the same time, it's like, well, this is what I
Yeah.
used to do versus what
Yeah.
it is
Learning
now. So,
experience. Yeah.
you know,
Shows
but
improvement.
yeah, yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
mean,
so
I
what?
don't know. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, this slide is basically like I've had so many customers in my 3-ish years of working in the hobby store. They come to me and they're say a lot of them are car guys, right? And they're
Hmm.
just talking to me and they're saying, Dennis, I'm trying to do a clear coat, right? Because I want my car to look really nice, or I want my tank to look really flat. And they're having issues like I'm putting down too much matte coat, so I'm getting white spots, or my car's when I'm putting down the clear coat on my car, it's coming out grainy, or it's coming out pebbly and stuff like that. And I don't know. The way I've always looked at it is that varnishes are paint, yes, but they shouldn't be treated like any other paint. I think there's a special kind of way you need to work with varnishes if you want to get the best results from them. And the way I thought that this might be a slide where I could kind of give my 2 cents on that. You know, Having been part of the car modeling world, so knowing all about how you have to get that perfect glassy coat of clear varnish, and then also being in tanks where you need to get the dead flat, and then aircraft where it's like anything goes.
Well,
I
even
found,
on tanks, I'd say even the dead flat is debatable, but
yeah,
that's
it
for another
absolutely
slide.
is. Yeah, I thought
There's
I'd just
another
give
slide
my
coming up.
kind of 2 cents on what you
Yep.
can do to improve varnishing. So the first thing is I found don't use rattle cans and don't brush paint. You gotta airbrush because with airbrushing it allows you to apply the varnish exactly where it needs to go and in exactly the right amount. Right? If you're using a paintbrush, you're gonna put too much on. and it's going to be goopy and it's going to accumulate everywhere.
And you're going to
And
get
rattle
brush marks permanently.
exactly, yeah. And then rattle cans, I find again the problem is you're adding too much, and it's just going to fill everything in. And more often than not, with rattle cans, especially with matte coat, you can easily just put too much down and get that whitening effect. So I find that an airbrush, if you want to do it right, you got to use an airbrush. The other
And
thing I found,
you got to go slowly.
yeah, exactly. The other thing I found is that, especially if you're not using an enamel, right? If you're using either like pure acrylics from Vallejo or Tamiya or lacquer clear coats, you gotta use some kind of a retarder or a flow improver. Because the problem is, especially when you're doing a clear coat, like a glossy coat, you need everything to self level out. Like that's how one of the ways that it becomes so glossy is the medium actually levels itself out to create a very nice, smooth, uniform surface. Because it's not like that when you spray it on, right? So it needs to have time to dry. So I found whether you're using Vallejo's airbrush flow improver or Tamiya's lacquer thinner or with retarder in it or acrylic retarder or whatever, you'll want to add retarder to whatever you're spraying because I find that whether it's a matte coat, satin, or gloss, always that makes that much of a difference. And the other thing is quick shine, like floor polish, amazing because if you want just a quick, cheap and easy clear coat before you put on decals or weathering, this is something that I can't recommend enough to people. Trying this out because it's cheap, right? You can get a whole bottle for $5-10. You don't need to clean your airbrush after using it. You don't need to thin it, and it self levels out, and it's dry within 12 hours. It's amazing. You use floor polish, Callum?
I've never considered that, but then again, like a lot of the things I make aren't glossy. Although, like I do want to actually try building a car just to try out an ultra gloss. Um, although maybe I might have in a
Yeah.
few an aircraft that could probably do that as well.
Any kind of floor polish that's a knockoff of Future, so like Future, Pledge, stuff
Mm,
like that, and Quick
yeah,
Shine, all this stuff will work. It's been kind of an industry secret amongst aircraft modelers for decades now. And some people say, well, they yellow if you leave them in UV light for too long. But I always say, well, why are you leaving your models in direct sunlight?
yeah.
Uh,
I mean that's going to just destroy it anyway. So
yeah, and it's not obviously what you want your final coat of varnish to be when you're sealing everything in. But if you need something, before you put on decals or anything like that, I find this is amazing. I swear by this stuff.
I'm gonna have to give that a go. So okay, so one I want to get your take on this. Because there's different ways you can use varnish. One of them
Mm.
you're saying, about decals and stuff like that. When it comes to doing your decals and weathering and all that, what do you prefer to use? Because of course, you got gloss that has an ultra fine smooth surface, which if you want to do decals, pin washes, all of that, makes it run smooth. It goes down nice and smooth. But then you got varnish and matte, which have a bit of a texture to them, especially matte does. And of course, satin varnish you get less staining, and then matte varnishes the minute paint touches matte, it just soaks through, and you're never
Yeah,
getting
and
rid
you're
of it.
not getting it out really. Once it's
No,
on, it's on.
yeah,
See,
yeah,
I understand. Again, being an aircraft guy, I understand the whole thing. Like, yeah, you gotta put on a gloss coat before your decals and all that. Because at one point in time, yeah, decals with silver. But I find that nowadays, especially with any like modern manufacturer, like Cartograph for decals, that I've never had silvering as an issue. Even on kits where supposedly it was a problem.
mm,
So I've always subscribed to the whole like using satin because satin gives you just enough of a smooth surface that you can have things flowing well. But I also find that I like it when, say, I'm doing the exhaust on the Spitfire, right? I want to have something for the pigments in my washes to grab onto so that I can get some staining. But I find it's more controllable than using a matte varnish.
mm. Yeah, because I've tried the whole using gloss and then weathering, but I find, especially if I'm doing a pin wash and trying to do it controlled,
You
it kind
can't.
of
You
just
can't control it.
no, it just goes anywhere at once, and then it usually goes into places you don't want it to go.
Yeah.
Whereas matte varnish, you're trying pin wash and it doesn't move. The
Well,
drop
that's one of
just
the
stays
reasons.
there.
That's why I don't pin wash anymore. That's why I don't wash my models at all. I don't panel line them. I don't wash them. I just oil paint them.
You
And
know
I
how
don't
much
use
hate we're going
thinners
to get
either.
for that one?
Pardon me.
You know how much hate we're gonna get for that
Oh
sentence.
my god. I don't oil paint render either. I still don't know what OPR is. I don't really intend on finding out because it seems pretentious. I
I
just
yeah.
and that's how we got canceled.
That's how we lost the entire community. Although I do stand with you on the OPR, I've
What
tested
the
it
hell
out
even
and
is it?
I just can't do anything with it. And I don't know. I don't. For me, personally, I don't like a whole lot of color modulation like on flat surfaces because that's not what it looks like in real life.
See, I'm on the other end. I've gone full artistic with this stuff. You know what I do? I
What?
don't panel, I don't weather. I take artist oil paints and I literally paint the aircraft like it's a canvas. And somehow the weathering gets through. I think I've got an example of that with my Spitfire on one of the next slides.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
it's
might.
new. You know what? I'm enjoying it. It's really fun. I overpaint my decals to make them look like they're painted on and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
I'm gonna have to try that out because I was testing a theory with say with an aircraft. You know, you got multi camo and you airbrush it down and all of that, and then at the end you use a um, thinned out oil paint and then just brush over the same color for each of
Yeah.
the things just to see what would happen.
Yeah.
I think I might
Have you
do
ever
that.
tried airbrushing a pin wash onto your model? Like using an airbrush instead of a brush?
No, I don't have that amount of
You've got
control.
to try it because I tried it with some Warhammer like airplanes. It's really good. You
It,
thin the wash out a lot. We're
uh-huh.
talking you take whatever the wash is and you double the viscosity of it, right? You add
Hmm.
like more thinner. And when you airbrush it, because of the high pressure, what will happen is it will quickly flow into the areas like panel lines and rivets where it would settle before it has time to stain the raised areas. So what you get is you just pass over something like a tank, and it will just settle into everything it needs to settle into without any fuss. And you just like dab away the excess. But I have done entire aircraft in like a minute, where it would normally take me hours, and it looks considerably better.
I wish you'd told me that before I started doing the pin wash on my Rodney. That
It
that took me 6 hours.
is just way too tedious, and like most things, you can cut the time in half with an airbrush rather than doing it by hand.
I wish I knew that now. I'm just rethinking my entire yesterday.
But the key is, of course, you've got to thin it out a lot, right? You can't just
Yeah, yeah.
use the wash straight from the bottle.
Mm, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
gonna. I'm still trying to figure out, like, imagine how that works in my head. You might have to do like a YouTube video on how to do that because
I'm kind of overdue to do another YouTube video, like as an update on my Spitfire quest. So maybe I'll talk about it there.
honestly, you should do another video. I actually really enjoyed that one. It was entertaining.
Dennis shit posts in real life.
Yep.
The one thing I'm looking at with this Spitfire you've got here on the screen, the one on the right, man, they really were glossy. Because I was doing a Sea Fury, right, a Canadian
Yep.
Navy one, and that was supposedly glossy. Like in the photos, you see the mirror
Mm,
reflections coming off of it. And I
yeah.
took it to my local IPMS meeting, and a guy immediately says, "That's a great looking model, but it's way too shiny. They would never be that shiny." And like I said, there were photos on the internet of it, but I didn't have the time to show him. But this is
Mm.
interesting. It's not just the Sea Furies that were painted like that.
No, it seems like a bit of a late war thing
Hmm.
that started because like here's the thing, everyone just seems we're going to get a lot of hate for this, but if you want to comment on the video how much you dislike our opinions, that would be cool.
That boosts our engagement. We're happy with that.
Oh, we'll take any sort of engagement. Even email us. I'll check the podcast email address in the description. Email us if you want long form. But there are multiple differences. It's not just one for all sort of thing. I've noticed.
Hmm.
Like, say there was one. Someone did a satin varnish on a P61 Black Widow, right?
Ooh. I
Or
would
they.
like that. Yeah.
The thing is though, like the only time a satin or a matte varnish on a P61 is applicable is in the early ones, right? The
Hmm.
P61As, because they were painted a dull olive drab, right?
Ugh.
But then through testing, the Air Force actually found out that a black high gloss finish was actually better for a night fighter.
Why? So that other aircraft could see it when they were up close?
No, it actually blended in with the Black Knight a
Huh.
lot better. They found it blended in a lot better than say a matte or something like that. That's like because you look at say the Night Fighter of the Hurricane or the Bolton Pool Defiant, or
They
you
were
know
all
they have
glossy.
yeah, like Night Fighters are supposed to be glossy, but a lot of people don't paint them as glossy. Um, and then like even say look at these two Shermans down at the bottom, right? You
I'll
got
tell you
the
one thing. One's
yeah.
way more visually attractive to look at than the other.
I don't know. They're both very attractive. I mean that Sherman M4A1 is one of the actual first A1s to be built because you can see it's got the 30 cal in the bow.
Yeah.
The
Well, I
and
guess
also yep
what I mean by that when I say visually attractive is I mean, so you look at the A1, right?
yep
And of course the lighting isn't great, but like, this could be an analog for looking at a model on a display table because displays at contests never have good lighting. The
no
one
God no
that's got a glossy sheen to it, you see the detail on it a lot more than you see it on the A3 to the
mm,
right. Like
yeah
the flat coat it just sucks the light up, and you don't actually see that much coming out of it.
especially because like the A1 has just such these like smooth curves to it.
Oh,
You
it's
can see
so
the light
nice.
just bouncing around it.
They should never have changed that. It's beautiful.
Uh, if it's going to
Uh
be
oh.
if it's going to be a cast hull, I prefer the composite Shermans over than the A1. Although this is weird, a real life M4A1, I don't like the look of.
Really?
A
Not a
30,
fan?
a 35th scaled down M4A1, I am all about. For
Well,
some
maybe
reason,
it's because you
A1,
can see more of it. Like in the 35th scale one, you can appreciate the whole thing, whereas if you see the real one up close, you're like, I'm looking at the curve. I don't
mm,
like this curve.
yeah, I don't know why. It's just a real life sized one. I'm not a fan of in video games, up close, all of that. A 35th one though, for some reason, is visually appealing to me. I don't know why. It's weird. I don't know.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
But you can see like even walking through the RAF museum and the Bovington Tank Museum, they all had these different finishes on. Some of them were glossy, some of them were satin, some of them were matte as matte. Like the that Sherman down there.
Yeah.
Although that was in the conservation hangar, there's a high chance most of that matte finish is actually dust. Um,
That very well could be. Yeah.
but
Well, because
yep,
the
go for
American
it.
tanks were painted in an olive drab enamel, and the
Mm,
enamel would take time to dry, so it would naturally come out very glossy. Like that's one of the things if you look at true color photos from like the Chrysler tank plant, tanks were actually pretty shiny.
mm. Yeah, well that's the thing. Like um, even the we're talking when we had the episode with Martin Drayton talking about his Macabre,
Yeah.
and the Israelis actually put a textured paste over their tanks.
It's not
Um,
just anti-slip, it's also anti was it glare?
yeah, anti-glare,
Anti-shine.
so flat surfaces don't bounce light around the place.
Well, it makes
Um,
sense because a flat surface will take in a lot more light than it actually reflects.
mm,
A lot harder to see it.
yeah, but it's like so we get all these arguments about it's like no, all tanks have to be dead matte and all of that. You can't have a shiny tank, and it's like well, you can, but when people bring up photos like colorized photos are only good for a general color description. They're not something to go like solely on because whoever colorized it every colorized photo has a bias to it.
Yeah.
You get three people to colorize one photo, you're going to get different results each time. Some of them are horrendous, some of them are good, but it's not a true representation of the final finish. Um, I mean, there are some things that yes, you will definitely be a matte finish. That ships are one of them.
Yep.
But when it comes to like, especially aircraft, like that's like aircraft and tanks are the hot topic of like, is it supposed to be satin? Is it supposed to be matte? Is it supposed to be high gloss? At this point, it's kind of if you kind of know what tanks had certain types of paint, like Sherman's. you can see you can get away with a more satin to glossy look to it. Um, you know, you got to just the amount of research is kind of disproportionate to the amount of effort.
You know what? The
Um,
best thing to do: find one in the museum that you think is reputably painted.
mm,
Go off
yeah,
of that.
yeah, because also like you will see like tanks that have the original paintwork on it,
Yep.
and people go, well, you can see it's clearly like highly matted. It's a high matte finish,
Well, yeah,
right?
that paintwork is also 50 years old.
50 to almost 100 years old, or whatever, however long. You're looking at 60, 78. Jesus, Second World War is almost 80 years ago.
Good lord.
God damn. Um, if my math's right, yeah. 27, 40, yeah, 80 years ago. Christ. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, you're looking at something that's been sitting there for 80 years. It's
Like, of
it's
course it's going to be flat.
yeah, its properties have changed over that time. It's not going to be the original finish, So it's kind of like it kind of gives you a sort of permission to just go with whatever you think feels right.
Well, okay, we're on an intermission. Before we take a break, what do you think? What are some parting thoughts you want to share with the audience about varnishing?
Varnishes, always good to have all the three types with you, and gloss, satin, matte. Um, always test out everything. If you have paint mules, stuff like that, all like just test everything. Another thing, one way that is really helps with making sure you don't pull it in places or anything, because when you put down certain varnishes, you just can't see it
Yep.
even when you're airbrushing it. Put yourself on an angle with a light. That's the best way to do it.
Good lights. You want a good lighting situation going, yeah.
Mm. And also just test everything. Test off it. Spray your cutting mat if you've got one, just to try and make sure it's not doing anything funky or anything like that. So just test it. Have the basic three, and just don't go with what. Don't necessarily go with what everyone tells you should do, because there's like in modeling you can do whatever you want. Don't let people say no. You have to do it exactly this way. Find the methods. Find the products and everything that work with you the best, and just go with it. If it works for you, it works. Do you have any
The only
thoughts?
thing I'd only add retarder to your clear coats. No matter what you're spraying, you will thank me later.
Yeah, yeah. Low and slow, low and
Yeah.
slow.
Well,
All
do
right.
you want to just burn through this intermission or take a break?
Let's burn through it.
Let's burn through it. Give the people what they want.
Yeah.
All right, hobby news.
Hobby news.
So, Flyhawk, who we would know for their 172 scale FT-17, are now coming out with a T-34-85 tank in 172 scale.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
that's probably going to be good.
I've only known Flyhawk as doing photo etch for ships.
Yeah, they did that as well, didn't they?
Yeah, that's all I knew them for. I didn't actually know they brought out full kits.
Oh, you need to check out their FT-17. That kit is beautiful.
Oh, speaking of FT-17, so you see on Instagram, there's a guy who built a not 1/16, 1/6.
1/6 scale.
Yeah,
Yeah, Bai and Wu.
yeah. That thing
Oh,
is
I love that.
massive. Oh, it is
Yeah,
so cool. I mean, where the hell would you put it? But still, I do like the box art on that Flyhawk though. Like
it
the
is
way
pretty
that
good.
it's like
Yeah,
it's got a whitewash, but then they've separated out so you can see the numbers, and
yeah.
even the fact that like the red lettering is all
It's on a weird
wonky, and
angle. Yeah,
yeah, if you put that down as a decal, how many
people would be
comments would you get
so
of people
mad.
go you like everyone would go, oh, you screwed that up, you put it on wonky and all of that. It's that
Mhm.
would trigger so many people, and I would do it just for that.
Oh, absolutely. KPM, which is a Czech yeah, they're Czech. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're a Czech manufacturer. They're coming out with two new 172 scale Hawker Hurricanes, both Mark II Cs. One of them is representative of aces in the Pacific Theater, and the other one is for Western Front hurricanes. And fun fact, the Aces boxing of this kit actually has two Canadian pilots featured.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I don't know why there's this big trend towards a whole lot of new Hurricanes being released, but I am totally on board with it.
you know what? It's been long overdue. You know what I think it is?
What?
I think it's the same thing with the Stoogs and all that, right? Or 1/16 scale. When one company takes the jump, which I guess for the Hurricane would be Arma Hobby,
Was it Arma? Or
because they've
would
been
it?
doing the 72 scale stuff for a little while now, but like they were the first guys to get back into it seriously,
Mm,
other than Airfix, I guess. Um,
yeah, because like a Hurricane was kind of an Airfix mainstay, but
yeah,
they weren't that good. I
no,
think.
and no one else really did them. I mean, Italeri had that kit, which was like it was okay. It was a Hurricane,
Mm,
but then Arma Hobby, it was maybe 3 years ago, started doing those Night Fighter Hurricanes, and then the Canadian ones in 172
mm,
scale with all the photo etch and all that. And I think those were successful enough that proved there was a market for Hurricanes. And then they do the 148 scale Hurricane, which is supposed to be absolutely amazing. And then you've got all these like other companies, especially from Eastern Europe, doing these other ones.
yeah, and of course you had the Ravel 32nd scale one, which got
Yeah,
absolutely roasted when it. They got shat on a lot when it first came out for being bad, but then they corrected it, didn't they? They
they
actually
did
took that
something
feedback
with
on
it.
board, and
Yeah,
now
which
it's
I mean,
actually a decent
props to
kit.
Ravel for that. Yeah,
Oh yeah, like they actually listened to people and changed it because otherwise it wouldn't have sold.
yeah.
Because once it's online, everyone will find out, hey, this kit is no good, don't buy it, and that's
And
just
the
going to
thing
hurt.
is, even if the kit wasn't actually that bad, if people just start saying it's a bad kit, it's like the whole Kitty Hawk thing, right?
Mm,
Kitty Hawk had that reputation that all their kits were bad, even when some of them are like, eh. I mean, they're not the worst, you know. They're
mm,
definitely buildable, but like everyone just says, yeah, they're all unbuildable. I think it was the
yeah,
same thing with the Rebel kit. Like they had to get in front of that criticism before it was allowed to spread.
yeah, because they also have that reputation anyway of Ravel, it doesn't
Yeah,
work. So that's. I'm
I
also
mean,
interested in this company here, but what were you going to say?
KBM. I've got a couple of their kits, mostly because they do a lot of Canadian stuff, right? Like I've got, for instance, in my stash, their Top Aces Alpha Jet, which is basically Canada's version of Top Gun. So I
Mm,
mean, yeah, I've got that. They're a short run manufacturer, and they're getting better. They're kind of where who would it be? Checkmaster. Checkmaster kits were when they were still the Checkmaster company before they went to CMK and CMR. They're kind of where that is right now. So like I mean, the kits are early 2000s Airfix in terms of like they've got the two fuselage halves, right, and like you sandwich the cockpit in them. Um, Details are okay. You definitely want to take a rivet wheel to them, maybe a panel line scriber, but
hmm.
fundamentally they are pretty decent kits, and each one that they release is definitely better than the last.
Yeah, although I've just noticed one little thing down in the bottom right corner, and it's got
Oh
written
god.
Hella
Oh
slash
no.
Smur. Um,
Oh no.
I might We'll need to translate the rest of it, but I hope it does not say
I
like, please
You
don't
know
say it's
what that
tooled by
means.
them.
You know what that means.
It's a Hella kit.
It's a Heller kit.
I'm
Ugh.
already scarred for Hella.
Oh god.
Well, because I built that Hella Humbrol AMX,
Yeah,
and
those
it
damn French ruining my beautiful British aircraft.
ooh, what's this? Oh, a mentor. Ooh,
Yeah,
nice.
this is Academy's brand new tool, Beechcraft T-34B Mentor, two-seat U.S. Navy training aircraft. This looks pretty cool. I like the paint scheme.
Oh yeah, I love the orange. Is this like a genuine Academy new tool, or is
I
it like
believe
a
so.
mini craft?
From what I understand, it is a new tool, but I mean, don't take my word on it, just in case. Um, yeah, I mean, Academy kits aren't that bad these days.
Yeah, I mean we take the piss out of them, but
They're getting better.
I've built 9 Academy kits, I think,
Yeah,
all like
and I mean,
the
hey, that box
72nd
art's
ones.
lovely.
Oh, it's a great box art. I think I can't remember. I think the Warbirds Association here, they either have mentors or tutors. I need to search that up.
Probably mentors because the tutors are jets.
not tutors.
Harvards,
Nah, I know we've got those.
chipmunks,
We've got those. There was one
tiger
more.
moth.
There was another. There was another one. Ah,
Hmm.
that's going to drive me nuts. Because yeah, our warbirds, our training aircraft have a really cool silver and red. They're like half silver, half red camo
Oh, that's cool.
schemes on them. That I want to build one of them just because it's like I really want to paint something other than green.
Yeah,
That's why I
yeah,
like aircraft, so that you get a little bit of variation.
absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, this is coming out from Academy. Nice to see some training aircraft out.
Hmm.
Clear Prop is
Ooh,
reboxing their I-16. This time it's going to be a Finnish one with skis. I mean, Clear Prop models, like, they are insane. They are absolute, like, they beat Edward in terms of surface detail.
really?
They are amazing. So definitely, this is what a kit to watch out for.
I will say, a 72nd I-16 is absolutely tiny. I've built one. I built the Hasegawa one. Actually, this exact one, Finnish Type 5 with skis. I do like they still haven't got the Finnish blue swastika on the box art.
Oh yeah,
See
I
me?
just noticed that.
Yeah, it's like it the Finnish weren't Nazis. Like that was just their Air Force insignia at the time. It's
Just
just I don't know.
highly inconvenient.
Uh, I wonder if they actually have the decals at least.
They
You know,
probably
like
do.
if you're trying to make something authentic. Little fun fact about the I-16. Well, two fun facts. One, we have one in New Zealand.
Really?
Yeah, which is going to be at the Warbirds over Wanaka, which I'll be going to in April next year for the first time ever, and I am so excited. So there's one. Also, you see the have you see the slots in the front of the
Yep.
engine? That's for keeping snow out. You can close them. You can open and
Oh,
close them
that is
for
so cool.
yeah for snow. And then the Hasegawa kit actually gives you that option of having them open or closed.
Get out of town. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's it's a cool little feature. I like those little features like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's there. Uh, so ClearProp is also taking their MiG 23s, and as they did the Israeli Air Force decals, they are now also reboxing it as a Ukrainian one. So the latest model floggers, that's going to be coming out.
Oh
Nice
man,
box
not
art there.
it's good. It's a good box art. It's a good box art.
And lastly, Ryfield Models is reboxing their Challenger 2 as the quote unquote Ukrainian version. So it will have photo etched bar armor and a cope cage.
I swear to
Yep.
God, this Ukrainian conflict is just like putting money in model kit companies because they're just reboxing things, and it's like let's just throw a cope cage on and bars and call it good. Would rename it a Ukrainian one.
I mean, really, that's less of a cope cage, more of a cope gazebo, perhaps.
I know, right?
That's actually quite tidy.
I kind of like it. I don't know.
That's nice. You could put a rug on top, sleep on it.
Mm. Actually, you could definitely do a diorama with one of those kamikaze drones sticking in the side of it because you've seen
Just
photos
sticking
of that.
halfway through the mesh.
Yeah, well, you've seen photos of that, or like camo
Yeah.
nets that catch them at like you see it at the last second. Like I saw a video of one, and a camo net caught one of those, and it literally just swung down, and it just missed the tank, and like just kind of
Oh,
hung there. You'll be sitting there, the crew will be like tweaking on that one, going, "Ooh,
clenching
fuck!"
on that.
Yeah,
Yeah. That'll be
suck
pretty
it
cool,
down to
though.
the tank.
So let's see what we've been working on. So remember how I told you that I don't weather anymore?
Uh huh.
So this is my culmination of my buddy build, well, grudge build with Don from Trash Panda Models. We both had to
Competition
do
build.
172 scale Canadian Spitfires. This is my 172 scale Tamiya Mark V with a lot of additions that are all homemade. This one represents ANV, which was a Spitfire that flew over Tunisia with the City of Windsor Squadron, 417 Squadron, Canadian Air Force. And yeah, this is it. I did a ton of modifications of it. I cut the canopy in half so I could open it up. I cut the door off for the pilot. I made my own seat belts out of copper sheet. Uh, Added wiring and stuff like that, plumbing to the entire cockpit. Drilled out the exhausts. Made new cannon barrels from brass tube, and riveted the whole airframe.
That's looking really good. I like the finish on it. Like, so this has got your oil paint technique on it
Yeah,
as well,
this
hey?
is just me painting it, and like I'm not using oil paint rendering or anything. I'm just painting it like a canvas,
Wait, so this is just oil paint?
just oil paints. So, like you can see, for instance, the blue roundel on the wing.
Yeah.
Like, see how it kind of integrates a bit better with the surface.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the decal, but then I put oil paint on it.
Okay. Okay. I'm getting it.
Yeah, it makes it just uneven enough to show it was actually painted, and not
Mm,
perfect.
yeah, yeah. I do like the sort of staining on it as well.
Yeah. So I'm refining that technique. It's going to get better over time, but yeah, the lovely little kit. It was fun to build.
Did you take a photo? Have you taken those photos on your Prius?
Now listen, before I give my answer, you must understand it was a beautiful backdrop. I mean, does it not work?
Oh no, it's great.
It's
I
got the
like it.
natural
Uh,
contrast. It's got the
Yeah,
lighting. It's got the
it's
background.
got the shadow. You got the reflection. I was just sitting there going, it's like that. That's his
Wait a
car, isn't it?
second.
It's like, hang on a minute.
You can actually see the reflection in this photo at the top of it from the house beside mine.
You can also see the impurities in your car's paint.
That was actually raindrops. So
I
yeah,
was going to say, it's like you might want to sand your car down a bit.
that's fine. It's Toyota finish. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Hey, I mean,
Uh,
you managed to smash the back of a SUV or something
oh yeah, the
with it,
tail gunner incident. Yeah, when someone tried to drive rear end me, so I just ended up smashing their back window with a
with
bike
your
rack.
your bike rack.
It's got that self defense mode enabled. Yeah,
What's
and then
this?
this is why I'm working on right now. This is the F-16 XL, which was basically a variant of the F-16 that was made to compete with the F-15. This is the old monogram kit, which I got for $10. It's 72 scale, absolutely horrendous. All the panel lines are raised, so I'm in the process of scribing all the panel lines and adding a few rivets. So this one, I'm really going to try this whole oil painting thing because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an aggressor camo on it, right?
Uh huh.
Like kind of that bluish, like the three-tone blue camo that you see F-16s wearing. I'm going to do that. I'm going to airbrush it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it look like it was in a motion blur. So I'm going to take an oil paint, roughly color match the blues, and then drag them back in a streaking motion across the whole plane.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I
And then
like
I'm going to
that.
put
I
it on
like that.
an aluminum rod and have it on a little display and then point it like going down towards the ground to try and show it, going fast. I don't know. We're going to see how it goes.
Oh, yeah. When you're doing panel lining, been meaning to ask you for a while. So do you use an actual like panel lining tool?
Yeah, I use a scriber tool from
Yeah.
Trumpeter. It's just a panel line engraver. You
Oh,
can get them for like $10.
we have the same one, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I think
Yeah.
it's like the common one. I find it
Yeah. Yeah.
works well. The one thing
Cool.
that's nice about the raised panel line kits is that at least the raised panel lines you can use as a guide to
Well, that
guide your scriber.
that's what they were intended for. Yeah, that's what that was the actual function. They couldn't make it at the time
Wait, really?
with recessed. Yeah, that was the reason for raised
Huh?
panel lines was that it gave you a guideline, so like stenciled them out and then you sanded them off and could scribe them.
No way.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. I read that. That's what someone said they were supposed to do. You with panel lines, raise panel lines. You are supposed to mask off and then sand it and rescribe it yourself.
Get out of town. That is so cool. I never knew that.
Yeah, so that's what I did with my Dornier.
Huh.
Um, but with your, so I've been meaning to ask. This might sound stupid to a lot of people, saying, "Hey, that's the obvious answer. Why can't you figure it out?" When you're scribing, do you push or pull it?
Oh, that's a good question. I generally pull it. The way that I do it is I'll start at say one end of the
Mm-hmm.
panel line, right?
Yep.
The furthest end. And I will just lightly drag it along the raised panel line. And again, I'm not putting any pressure down. I'm basically just putting enough pressure to keep it actually attached to the plastic. So you're using it light as a feather, right? You do that the first time. Then you go back and you do it again. Then you push down on it to actually gouge out the panel line because now you've got a path for it to follow so it doesn't go all over the place. But yeah, you just pull it together, pull it towards you with a little bit more force. but I find that you have to do it the first time really lightly, because otherwise it's going to go all over the place if you try to gouge it out.
Right. Yeah. Which is what I did on my BF 109.
I hate doing it, but I'm getting used to it.
Yeah, it's one of those when you first start it, you make so many mistakes. You're like, this is not working, but you just gotta just keep doing it and keep doing it, and eventually, yeah, you'll get it.
You will get it. Yep.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
So
luckily for me, I've got tons of old vintage. I've got quite a few vintage kits that need that. Also, since when did everyone start doing my thing on the server of like buying really cheap, shitty kits and trying to build them without having a mental breakdown?
well, you know what? I got this because I just thought it was cool, right? And it was ten
Yeah.
bucks. And the way I'm approaching it now is like I've got this little base for it. I'm going to put it on a stand. I've printed out a decal of the Mojave Desert, and I've made it. I superimposed a photo of an F-18 over top of it, right? And I've added a motion blur to the whole thing, so it already looks like it's in motion.
Uh huh.
And because it's so cheap, I'm going to do that oil painting thing. I'm going to try making it. They're going to do the old Dennis becomes Bob Ross thing. We'll see if I can make it look like it's in motion, and go from there. But because it's not an expensive kit and it didn't take long to assemble, I'm not worried about, oh, okay, if I screw it up, so what,
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I buy vintage kits because you know me, I'm not a brand person, I'm a subject person. So if it's,
Yeah, you'll make it
we should
happen either way.
we should definitely do an episode just talking about how to build vintage kits because
Yeah, that'd be a great one because I think a lot of
I always say every kit deserves to be built, even if it's a bad one. As long as you know what you're doing and accept it, you're gonna be fine.
I mean,
You know.
hey, back in the 1970s, this is all the best stuff that people had access to, and they were making amazing looking stuff back then.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's actually that whole concept of the base and the whole movement thing you're talking about. I think I've got a photo when I was at the New Zealand IPMS Nats of someone did that over water, and it looks really cool.
Oh
If I can
yeah,
find it, I'll send it to you because it looks pretty awesome.
I'd love to try
Um,
that.
yeah, yeah. No, that's looking great. It's like,
Yeah,
so that's
we'll
like a
see
sort
how
of
it goes.
prototype Delta Wing F-16.
Yeah, basically the idea was that they were competing with the F-15 for the strike. Basically, what would become the Strike Eagle for like this new
Ah,
tactical fighter concept. So it was like they want to increase the payload capacity of this by literally making the wing bigger. And
right.
yeah,
And
yeah,
ultimately, the F-15 still won.
yeah. I mean, it makes sense, but there you
Yeah.
go.
Actually,
Ooh,
that's the only modern jet I think I'll ever build is an F-15. It's like the only one I like.
yeah.
Right, this is me. Um,
Look at
I
that.
I totally got onto the 1 to 700 ship train right now. Just because I've had, as I was saying before, I build a lot of vintage kits, and eventually they do get to you. You just they went, okay, I need to just, I've been struggling with tanks, I've been struggling with aircraft lately. I'm just trying to get finishes, just same old, and just not enjoying it. And then I found this for $15 online, so I
That is
bought it
not bad.
immediately. Yeah, and I was just like, I've built two ships in my life. One was the Airfix 1 to 600 Bismarck, which I built when I was like 10, and it's noticeable. Um, and then a 1 to 700 IB, is it IBG or GB?
IBG.
IBG. I can never remember which way it is. Um, but yeah, I thought I'm going to give something else a go. I remember I built the HMS Middleton destroyer, and I
Yep.
really enjoyed it, and it's a really good kit as well. So I saw this, and I thought, well, it's a Tamiya one, it's a water series. I quite like doing water bases. I'm going to build a ship. So this is the 1 to 700 HMS Rodney. Um, and I've been enjoying this kit since day one. Although, uh, you will see if you look really, 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 really closely at the rangefinders on the turrets, one of them is slightly different, and that's
That's
because,
fine.
well, that's because when I was putting them on, one of them just disappeared. I like I dropped it from a height of about an inch, and then I tore my entire desk apart because I'm going, it could not have gone that far. Eventually, I just had to get some styrene sheet to get glue it together and then cut out the shape, and it took me like 3 times to do that. So that's what one of them is. I actually ended up finding that rangefinder. You know what? You know what? You want to know where I found it?
Where?
You see where the cluster of life raft ship boats are.
Mm-hmm.
It was before I put the boats on. It was stuck on it, but I never noticed because I thought it was just a random greebly like detail, like the rest of it on the deck. I thought it was just that. It looked like it,
Yeah.
and of course I'd sprayed bloody primer over it because I wasn't looking, so it just melded in, and I thought it was exactly that. And then and then when I was like putting the boats on, just dry fitting, like I'd put the deck color down and all of that, and then it just suddenly pinged off. I'm going, what?
Yeah.
And then I actually looked at the screen and went, is that fucking rangefinder piece that I'd spent an hour looking for it, gave up, scratch build a pit. It was glue. It was just stuck to the bloody deck the whole time.
Oh,
uh, but yeah, whatever. It's yeah. But
gotta love that.
yeah. So this one, another annoying thing that I found with this kit, I will say. So they give you like paint options for the. There's 2 schemes for the HMS Rodney, right? So you got the 1935 to 1943 scheme, which is grey,
Yeah.
and then you have the 1944 scheme, which is the disruptive cam pattern and all of that. So I wanted to do that because it looks awesome, and I was planning on it the whole time. And it wasn't until I was actually texting Nick, the scale armorer,
Yep.
and I was sending photos and all of that. And then I actually looked at the rigging diagrams. I actually looked at it closely and went, "Hang on a minute." And I looked at mine, looked back at it, looked at mine, and went, so the 1944 refit, what I didn't realize, they added on more guns, not main batteries, but more secondary batteries, more AA positions. There's an extra mast on top of the main stack. Uh, the rigging is of course different and a lot easier. There's a crane that's missing because they added on a crane and a catapult on one of the I want to say the rear, the number 3 turret for where a supermarine walrus goes. And suddenly I'm going, oh, I don't have these pieces.
Yeah.
Well, guess I'm doing 1935 to 1943.
There you
So,
go.
the center stack is still not glued down, but I'm now trying to figure out the rigging. That's pretty much it. Then I can start making a water base for it. And what I'm going to have it as depicting its battle with Bismarck,
Okay.
because it was one of the ships involved with hunting the Bismarck down.
Right.
And basically, so I've got a picture frame that it just fits in, but it has to fit in diagonally, which I don't mind. Because then what I'm going to have is the front 3 guns firing, so tufts of smoke,
Mm-hmm.
and that will sort of fill up one sort of corner of the picture frame that's going to be a bit blank. But then on the back, I'm going to do the same as I did with the HMS Middleton, where I had the depth charge going, so the big plume. I'm going to
Okay.
have 2 or maybe 3, maybe 2, depending on how I can do the spacing, and that will be the Bismarck firing back at it and just missing sort of thing. So that way I have something in the corners and there's no real blank spaces. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm going to do with it. But
That's awesome, man. I can't wait to see how it comes out.
same. I definitely I'm on the 1 to 700 train right now because I bought myself for $15 again the USS Hornet with the B-25s on it taking off for the Doolittle raid. So
Right.
that will be very soon as well.
That's
But yeah,
awesome.
but I spent 6 hours yesterday doing the pin wash and the overall washes on this yesterday. And then you go and tell me, hey, there's a way that you can do it with no effort and time at all.
Yeah, just airbrush it.
Yeah, wish I'd known. But yeah, that's all I've been working on. And then, of course, we have the build-off challenges still going. So, of course, we have Dennis and Don with their Spitfires. So you've finished yours, haven't you?
I'm
Your
finished
one's,
mine. Yep.
And Don, how far is he? I know he was bitching
He's on
about.
the final stretch with him as well. Yeah,
I know he had a lot of trouble with the decals, didn't he?
yeah. He had to end up spraying them, I believe.
Oof. Yeah, because yeah, he had a lot of issues with that. Although it's always fun to watch Don. Now he's bitching about the North Africa um,
Well, that's
bow
just what he
fighter.
does. That's like his whole personality.
I know it's so fun to watch. Although that's also I convinced him to buy a frog kit.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
I
on
am.
you.
I am mean. That is a horrible thing to do to someone. But oh well. Then of course we've got Hotshot and Christian with their figures, although I haven't seen much of them. And then Treadhead and Was are doing their tiny tanks. I think Was, or is it Combi, has just started theirs. So we'll need to get an update from them on how they're all going. But if you have someone that you want to challenge to a one-on-one and have it sanctioned by the podcast, and we'll talk about it, hype you up, and stuff like that, we'll just send us a message, let us know, we'll add you to the list, and yeah, we just think it'll be a fun little, if you want to do a buddy build but make it competitive.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Alrighty.
What's next? Of course, we have the Horizon Island group build. We've decided that's going to be an ongoing thing, not just a specific time. So, yeah, which we need to change that slide to just forever.
Yep.
And then, of course, we have the North African campaign group builds, which has started a few days ago. Are you going to be doing anything for that one?
We'll try to we'll see what I'm gonna do.
I mean, you've just built a Tunisian bloody Spitfire. I
Yeah,
mean,
so I guess I technically already qualify for that.
I have been doing. This is the one group build I've been doing the most research for, and that's
Yeah.
because I'm going absolutely obscure and niche on it. Like so obscure, I've spent 4 hours researching just to confirm one thing, and that is so before the war, the France had territory in Syria, and then of course
Okay.
France split into Vichy French and Free French, right?
Yeah.
And over there, they had a very lackluster air force, but they included the MS 406 fighter, the Moran Solna.
Okay.
So I was researching into that because I was thinking, well, I've got the Hobby 2000 kit, which I'm excited to start because it looks great. So that one's the Middle East, which is a Syrian one. So I was
Mm-hmm.
researching into it because I'm going, well, Middle East, they kind of crossed over into North Africa a bit, and it's close enough. And then I read just one line that started this whole thing. One line that said, when France split into Vichy and Free French, a few MS-406s were brought over by Free French forces into Egypt and landed in RAF airbase to join the RAF and become, and they got their color scheme changed into RAF colors, roundels, all of that. And it was this one sentence that said it, and I've been researching into it, been going onto forums and all of that, just trying to get it, a photo of it maybe, or just confirmation that they were used, flew out of a certain airbase in Egypt or something like that.
Yeah.
And I found it's a little bit conflicting. It's like you have number one free flight, free French flight, and then you have number two. And Wikipedia says that they flew with number two, but then I found a record that showed that they were with number one, in number one free French flight, operated two Potes bombers and two MS 406s, and they were used in Egypt, Palestine, and Syria. And then I have found one photo of an MS 406 flying over Egypt, flying over a desert. You can't tell if it's Middle East or not, but
Yeah.
it's in RAF colors. So my thought is, if A, call out to anyone who knows anything about the Free French Air Force. Please, if you have info, let me know. I'm driving myself nuts. Um, but what it's going to be is I'm going to build a diorama, and it's going to be depicting one of those Free French Air Force MS-406s landing in Egypt to join the RAF. It's like the moment they've landed, sort of thing, before they got their colours changed and roundels and all of that. So, uh, it's going to have the 406 in it. I'm looking into either buying a 72nd CMP or Bedford or something like that to go with it, because either that or 3D printing one off. Don't know, haven't decided. And then also I'm getting some, the Airfix REF personnel kit.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to Nick, actually, the Scale Armourer. Check him out, nice guy. He actually has that. He has that kit, and he said he's never going to use it, so he's actually sending it to me. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
getting
nice
that
of him.
for free. So there's quite a few figures in that I'm going to use. So yeah, that's going to be my diorama. It's going to be one that I actually do a bit of planning for and research. Who would have thought?
There you go.
But yeah, there's one little sentence in Wikipedia has started this whole thing. But if I can find the relevant information and make it work, it will be one of the most niche North Africa campaign builds you could ever think of. A Syrian MS-406 flown by a free French pilot into Egypt to join the RAF, because there are only two, maybe between 2 and 6 MS-406s used by the Free French in Egypt. That's it. Like, those are the only ones used, sort of thing. So that's what I've found out. So yeah, super niche, which is me. You know me.
There you go. And as always, thanks to Scale Colors for sponsoring this podcast. If you want some non-toxic airbrush paints that are acrylic, you should definitely head over to scalecolors.com. And if you want 3D printed tank tracks, definitely go and check out Scale Colors 3D on that same website. That's scalecolors.com, and you can find some really cool items there. If you do decide to buy anything, let Jeff know that we sent you. And thanks as always to our Patreon supporters, Paul Gallagher, Lord Floki, Robert Judson, and Robert Brisbane. You guys help keep the lights on our podcast, and we are immensely grateful. If you also want to help support the podcast, there is a link in our description for the Patreon. You can chip in a few bucks a month and help us keep this podcast going. As always, thank you very much. And that was the podcast. That was a nice
Yeah.
short one, eh, Kellen?
Short, sharp, to the point. That was a good one. We should.
Yeah.
I think it's quite good once in a while we do a break from doing a vehicle and just talking about modeling stuff in general. It kind of keeps everything fresh and going. I mean, we like to try out new stuff all the time. We don't like to be bogged down with same old, same old, same old.
Yeah.
Every episode is the exact same format. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we will return hopefully next week to hear about Garrison's experiences at the show. What was it, Tigercon?
Yep. Garrison, Floki, and Gray are all at Tigercon at the moment. So if we could get all three of them on at the same time,
That would
just
be
have a chat
amazing.
about Tigercon, because I've sent some photos and they look like they're having a fun time. So yeah.
Yeah.
Floki definitely earns his nickname, I can tell you that. Oh boy, does he.
Oh. Alrighty. Well, bye everyone.